All right, we are starting out Friday with some beautiful weather, a great lineup, all about lies, 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 lies. And the Thompson twins released that in 1983, I think, and it still rings true today. You know, we know that right now it's more important than ever that the truth tellers are out there. And so our lineup today really includes people that not only tell the truth, speak the truth, document the truth, live the truth through their body even, and said, yes, we need to speak it and own it. So we are so glad you're in the room. And when this team talked about what we wanted to do, I just love that it's really current. We try to stay current, but every day we see how the big lie really has affected everything. So we'll be really interested to hear how going forward, especially after the good news of seeing Biden with the last night, and also the 100 days of Biden making us feel rather positive. How are these big lies and little lies impacting people that serve in government, that, you know, are also out there in the media trying to do journalism to get out the truth, and also in their everyday lives trying to live that truth. So this will be really an awesome show today. So we're so glad that you decided that your Friday you would be at the power lunch with us. And so I have to say, I'd like to welcome our guest lineup. Who better to talk about what big lies are all about than Amy Siskind. Amy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Author of the list, who better to talk about it? So glad that we can sort of hold some accountability for Republicans and people like you really documenting daily. That really helps us remember, because that's really important also. So thank you, Amy. We look forward to talking to you. And then powerhouse Phyllis Randall, our, let's just say, she started the idea of the crew, and she is definitely part of the Power Lunch crew, Loudoun County Board of Supervisor, always speaking the truth to power. And this lady has integrity, so she can do it. So welcome, Phyllis.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today. This is a great way to end a tough week, but it's wonderful to be here. And I cannot wait to see all of you in person. I mean, I'm so excited that not too long from now, we will not be in the little Brady Bunch boxes. We'll be together very soon.
Well, I kind of like being in my Brady Bunch box.
Kathleen, I miss you, Kathleen. I want to see you.
Well, no doubt, we will definitely get outside. And, you know, the Women's Summit this summer, just so everybody knows, we'll be doing a little bit of outdoor greeting and also in the room work. So thank you, Phyllis, for being here and always bringing it. And next up, we'll have Lowell Field of Blue Virginia, who is always every day bringing us the truth to his Blue Virginia. He's the editor and founder of that publication that we love to read every day. And he'll be discussing the idea about both siderisms. And raise your hand if you absolutely cannot stand both siderism, because this is the problem why we can't get at the truth. But Krista Jones will be interviewing him in a pre-recorded segment, because Krista, our sidekick, is on what we call vacation today. So she won't be joining us like literally in the Brady Bunch box, but she'll be joining us in the show. So stay tuned for Lowell. He always will bring it. And then we will have special guest, American journalist Megan Byer. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And
always great to
looking
see you.
forward to what a lineup.
We got a lineup. We're so glad you made time. It's always good to see you and your background in journalism. You bring some key insights to not only understanding the history of that art of reporting, but you also live it daily with your personal life. So I'll be interested to talk to you and your hubby. And could we say hi to Don Byer?
Hi.
Hi, Representative Don Byer, welcome.
It's always great to be the supporting spouse.
I love it. Yes, you always have
so
to
much fun. I mean, you're gonna love
it. Well, we'll see how you guys keep the truth really happening over there, right? And you do. So Don, it is our congressman in Congressional District 8, and always is just an advocate for his constituents and also Virginia. And we're so glad you're up in Congress. So welcome. And then lastly, a new friend from Richmond, Carmen Davis, a natural hairstylist. Hello, Carmen. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, how are you?
Are
Thank
you
you for having me today?
Yeah, I love it. You're bringing it today, all the way from Richmond.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome, Carmen. Thank you for being in the room as well. And so let's, as we say, get to it. I want to make sure that I am thanking the people that bring this show to you, our Power Crew team. We have Stair, Ambassador Buzz. Hey, my
Hey,
friend.
everybody.
Hey, Big Boss, you called me this morning and got me out of bed to go downstairs and look at my driveway. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hey, mothers deserve a grill.
I got a grill, everybody. Good for me. And then Robin Warner, show wizard, postcards for Virginia. Hey, Robin.
Hey there.
Good to see you. How many postcards have you been writing?
We've, well, we just finished up all of the ones for registration with Reclaim Our Vote, and we're gearing up to do what? 500,000 postcards for our amazing candidates this election. So stay tuned. And if you're a new candidate who's coming on the show for the first time, drop us a line because we will be writing postcards for you.
Right. I love it. I love it. And then is Louisa in the room yet?
Yes, she
I
is.
saw Louisa. That's true. Louisa, how are you? Louisa Borowski. She is the show news anchor and she is the leader of the Virginia Grassroots Coalition. Hello, Louisa. Are you there?
She's on mute.
Oh, she's
She
on
needs
mute.
to be Stair. Stair, would you make her?
Oh, yay. I can now talk. Hey guys, nice to see everyone.
I'm so glad you're back. And you know, we're flipping it. So you'll be reporting out at the end. And I hope you stay in the after chat if you have time. So if there's any more work we need to talk about, because it is about electing people in the end. The Power Lunch is all about bringing people together and also electing people. So thank you, Louisa, for being here.
See you in a bit.
Yes, see you in a bit, as we say. All right, everybody in the room, let's stretch and do some Friday. I'm wearing my zebra, well, not my zebra, my leopard today because I'm living my truth. I'm bringing it today. And I want you to know that if you want to be a patron, please sign up. You can support our show for the cost of a cup of coffee or, you know, just check us out and support us. We're so grateful for those who have supported us to date. So thank you. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel and like it and watch it. I'm going to tell you, we have some great content on that channel. So great for us. And then follow us on Twitter. We always need more followers to get out the content. So thank you. And also, as you know, stick around for the after chat because that's really where it happens. All right. So let's segue over. Let's get settled in and bring Amy up on the screen. Hello, Amy.
Hi there.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. It was great. We're trying to connect and talk, but I don't think we can get right into it. I mean, I'd like to introduce you. You're an activist, feminist, author, a former Wall Street executive, an advocate for equality. You're president and co-founder of The New Agenda. And I can't wait to actually, if you have time at the end, to talk a little bit about that, because that seems like it's really supporting a lot of things about women's rights. And actually now you can add to that list an American historian, in my view, because your list and your podcast, The Weekly, is now being archived in the Library of Congress. That's pretty freaking awesome, right? So the list documents the first year of the Trump administration, the daily assaults on democracy, as everybody probably in this room remembers what you did, and something you felt needed to be remembered, and that you obviously saw, as you said it, as not normal. So first, let's get it started. Tell us more about this project, and did you ever imagine when you started the list how important this documentation would be and the impact that would actually follow?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is no, and I didn't have any grand ambition, but we could already see literally ahead of the election and days after the Republicans attempting to rewrite history and how quickly that happened with the insurrection and what happened for the past 4 years. And you mentioned the whataboutisms and the trying to say false equivalency to what's happening. So the fact that it's all written down in retrospect, I'm extremely grateful for. And that's one of the reasons I kept going with the podcast, because now it's changing so quickly. We're 100 days out and life is normal. Like I can wake up, I don't need to look at my phone and find out whether we're started World War III or who's stolen what from whom, or yeah, it was literally 4 years of during dinner time, cooking dinner, 4 exploding stories that in normal times would all have been front page of the New York Times for a week and top story on CNN and everyone else for weeks. And then during the Trump era, there were 5 to 10 of those a day. So life feels very normal, but the idea of the project of writing everything down to sort of track our descent into authoritarianism, and thankfully, thank God we came so close to losing it all. But just to track what happened in our country, because I think as Biden, I was really surprised pleasantly how Biden addressed that the other night, how he spoke about us being on the brink of being an authoritarian regime and this battle globally for being democracy versus autocracy.
Right.
We endured 30,000 lies over a period of 4 years, and the lies escalated each week. And I think the gaslighting and the lies were just so exhausting. That was why I think it was such a close election. It was close, but not close. But what happens in authoritarian regimes, if you read history, is people give up and give in. And I think a lot of Americans did that. And just grateful that we got to the other side of this. And in retrospect, now recognizing the importance of the project to document what we actually lived through, so the Republicans can't erase that.
Right. Well, yeah, it reminds me of something like you would see in a movie, somebody in a jail cell that says, I have to document so I can remember every day. I think that what you brought up with the gaslighting, it's so easy to become forgetting. I know how I felt, like something outrageous would happen, a climate, even the small things, like you'd be like, oh, he's letting people, kill bears that are hibernating. And you're like, what? And then, or they're opening up the national land. Every day was something. And then then the next day, there'd be so much equal outrage that, what it does to your mind. So with that, like in the sense of the impact in your mind, just going back to what you think the big lie, first of all, it's continuing. The Republicans have not let go of it. And I'm interested in your opinion on kind of the effects it's having on regular people. And you could talk about, we have journalists in this room today, and in society in general. I know you're saying we're kind of getting back to some road to normalcy, but what in your mind is the impacts of this?
Yeah, so just in some perspective, the first week of the weekly list which was November 2016, when I thought this was a good idea to do, had 9 items, and then we were up to 18 in the second week. By the time I finished the project at week 208, we were close to 300 items a week. So we were basically bathing in broken norms and gaslighting and him getting away with things, like you mentioned, the bears. I mean, every day there would be 10 to 20 of those that I would be recording. Biden is undoing a lot of those.
Right.
But just in terms of like the cesspool we were collectively all living in. And what survives that, in addition to the Republicans trying to rewrite the truth, which the list is kind of the anecdote, will not allow that to happen.
Great way to put that.
What continues is sort of a built out ecosystem of propaganda that started under Trump and continues and allows him to, even without his voice, allows us unfortunately to keep this space of falsehoods and lies and propaganda. We had last week where there were fake stories about our vice president selling, giving out books at the border. And then there was, and that reporter from the New York Post, which is owned by the Murdochs, then resigned. There was another false story about Biden limiting how much hamburger meat or meat you could have. So the fact that those things can even have an ecosystem to multiply with shows you how close we came to the brink. Like if we didn't win that election, we would not have had another Democratic, quote, a Democratic, I say, because we still have voter suppression. We still have other issues to deal with, but we would have been like the elections they have in Russia and Turkey, where it's an election. So we came dangerously close. And I think Biden is right to keep the risk present with us, because the fact that so much of the Republican Party still believes
Right.
About our vice president's book, about Biden limiting meat, about Trump losing the election. 46% believe, that they shouldn't get a vaccine because Fox News told them not to get a vaccine.
Right.
So that propaganda system exists and lives, and we can go back to that after 4 years if we're not careful. So it's so important that we work every election. We were able to get out 81 million people. We have to keep doing that at the state, local level. In addition to, we have to keep the House and Senate.
No, and
all of this stuff is so fragile.
It is so fragile. And Jim, that's one thing that I remember just even thinking about from the very beginning, is that it is so fragile. I don't think people realize that it's really held together more by a common pact, that we all agree with stuff. And what Trump exposed was these things aren't kind of solidly written down like you must. It's like, oh, well, these are what you called norms. So easy to break. And I do agree that Biden and Harris and all the Democratic Party is trying, and regular people are trying to bring this back to normalcy. And I think COVID, though, in your mind, though, COVID, it kind of reminds me that there is got to be a new normal when we start to talk about those words. So let's talk about your podcast, because I think that I love that you're continuing the work. And as an activist, I super appreciate that you woke up one day with an idea, and someone didn't say, like with our ideas we come up with, I have people around me that say, that's a great idea. So it's all about your friends, right? And you shared this list with your friends at first, and that's always awesome. But that's really important too, that we continue in this activism work. But now I listen to your podcast. I love it, the weekly. Talk a little bit more about that and that 100 days. And I loved the story in there, how you repurposed something really bad that happened or happened to you, that you got this delivery package in the mail, and what you did with that negative and turned it into a positive. I would love to end talking more about the weekly, talking about your podcast, the continuation, and then talking about I love your view of this positive way that you've dealt with this.
Yeah, so in the first 2 years of keeping the list, I was, especially as a woman, called hysterical, called every variety of that this was not autocracy, that I was just imagining it, that this was just another George Bush Republican. And I think a lot of women who spoke up early got that same treatment. And when my book came out in 2018, which is just the first year,
right,
the Washington Post reporter that reviewed it called me a sentinel at that time. But those kind of things were needed, to people warning everyone that what was going on. But that's something I captured in the podcast, in the list, that this was something that most of our country believed was just another George Bush 4 years. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us saw that it wasn't. And so actually the lists are now in the Library of Congress, but they're going to be permanently archived at a major university as part of a collection, along with a podcast telling the story of this time. And that's in part why I'm continuing the podcast, because unless you were living in this, you won't believe that it happened. When you think about how dramatically your life changed after January 20th, many of us, and I tweeted this last night, if Biden did not win the election, we would be India. Trump had no plans for the vaccines. There was no vaccine production underway. Europe reported negative numbers on their economy. Our economy is coming back. So leadership mattered so much, but our lives have changed so dramatically. We've gone from being the pariah of the world and something everyone's worried about, to a leader of the world again. But that was so fragile. And so I'm trying to talk through what it feels like for people to listen to 200 years from now. And the university that is permanently archiving it recognizes the importance that somebody's never done this to this kind of level of detail, and historians will be writing about this era, which is hopefully a one-time, we have to hope a one-time 4 years. And then to answer your other question to close off, so during these 4 years, and becoming a public figure, and anyone who tells you like it's all glamour being a public figure, I have news for you. I had 4 years of death threats. I had neo-Nazis show up at my door. I had a Russian show up at one of my book events. I have lots of stories. And Russia tried to intimidate me once it became public that I was doing this list. And it was once the Washington Post wrote about it. But one of the packages I got in December, and sometimes I get lovely gifts. I got many boxes of champagne, thank you all, and wine to celebrate after we won, and lovely gifts, and people made stuff like this. I mean, I had, these were all being at the university in the archive. But one time I got a really heavy box, and my son was home from college, and he's 6'2" and 200 pounds, and I was like, can you bring it in? Can you bring it in? And finally he was like busy doing something else. So I just went out with my scissors and cut it open. And it was a big, heavy box just full of rocks. And there happened to be a police officer going by. And so I sort of have like a running list, like some of you have at the bar. I have like a cocktail, ongoing list with my tab at the police station with all the threats that I get. And so I cut off the label where it came from, and the police officer researched it, and she said it was from an area in California where they have a heavy neo-Nazi presence. But long story short, coming out of this time, and something I wanted to focus on and have focused on, I've been doing events for Black women. I just think we need more Black women in leadership. My first event that I did virtually was for Val Demings. And then I've done 2 events in my backyard for Black women that are running in Westchester County where I live. And one of them, as we were coming over to measure out how many people we could fit, one of their campaign managers and I decided, you know what, we should use those rocks to hold the little placemats in place for the 6 feet social distancing. So we got kids to come over, they painted them the colors of the campaigns, the 2 campaigns, which were purple and a beautiful green with a vote on it. And so they were all in my backyard on top of the social distancing mats. And so we turned hate into support for more Black women in government, which seems like a good little twist.
That is a great story and a great way to end. But before we end out, I would like to just talk about your project, The New Agenda, because I think that would be important. Our audience will love to hear about this.
Yeah, so that started in 2008, a group of us from around the country who were upset when Hillary Clinton ran the first time about the sexism directed at her. And we decided back then to be nonpartisan. So we were the first group to speak out when Republican women were attacked. And our first few years were speaking out about sexism, and then also pushing for better representation of women. So advocating when Obama was in office to put more women in the cabinet. Obviously with Trump, that changed the dial of everything that we did. But we hold an annual event called National Girlfriends Networking Day, which has been every June. We couldn't do it last June. This year, we're going to wait and do it in person in September. But it's virtual, so it lends itself to this. And we do events around the country that it streams to, including in Virginia. We always have had an event hosted by Morgan Stanley there.
Right.
And we also have a foundation that focuses on the issue of campus sexual assault, which also with Trump we went backwards on. So everything for the last 4 years has just been education, networking, getting more women in positions of power. But when Biden took office and picked Kamala Harris and then picked a cabinet that was the most diverse in history, I was in tears, because that is something my organization for 12 years has been working towards, and Biden has done that.
Yes, well, you know what? And I think the women in this room in Virginia have done it too, right? This is what we've been working on, to elect women and progressive men to power. And that's what it takes. When we stood up, after what happened when Hillary lost, we woke up and took responsibility. Like you, an idea came in, let's march, let's do this, let's write postcards. So these ideas of working together and supporting each other, and Amy, is definitely, the way to go. And documenting it, it's just, we always tell people, tell your story, write your story. So we're so grateful that you woke up one day and lived your idea. And last night for everybody behind Biden was 2 women, right? Nancy,
Right.
was that awesome?
We're getting there. We're 2/3 of the way there. And
I
thank
wanna
you for all
see-
your work, everyone here. Virginia is a turnaround story. You're a model for the rest of the country. Truly.
We definitely we'll take that, right, ladies, everybody? Okay,
You
look,
are a model. I mean-
everybody's like, yeah, we did it. We're gonna
Yeah.
continue to do it. And then we're gonna have to also, as we say, we always turn to the holding people accountable, and we're gonna be painting our own rocks at some point. And I love that theme. And with that, we're gonna say thank you for being here. If you have time to
Thank
stick
you all for
around,
having me.
please do, but I understand that you are very busy and we appreciate what you do. And we'll see you on the tweet side of things. All right. You
Yes,
stay
thank you.
safe. All right. All right. With that said, I love it. I love it. I love it. Phyllis, Randall, when you're in the room, it makes me so happy because I just feel like we're going to really talk about real stuff. And let's go at it. So on the local level, and you see these, what we really want to talk about is speaking truth to power, why that's important. But actually somebody in local government, how you deal with these distortions and exaggerations and that how do you really make sure you really be able to speak the truth, but also present to your constituents the facts. And so tell me what you're thinking.
So first of all, I could have listened to Amy all day. She was
Yeah.
just phenomenal. I mean, just phenomenal. I also want to say 2 more things before I say anything else. There's a lady in the room named Mary Trice, I think her last name is.
Mary.
She is fantastic. I've been just watching her dance when we came into the room and watching her face. She's wonderful. So yay, Mary Trice. I love her. And then I have a colleague of mine from many years ago who helped kind of opened my eyes into a lot of things and walked me through a lot of the reasons to get involved. Her name is Linda Schultz, and she's in the room with us. And so I wanted to say hi to Linda Schultz. So it's so cool that she's here. Local elected government is so different from federal state government. When we say we really are closest to the people, we mean that. I mean, it's true. So when you have all these things happening at a national level, on a state level, it kind of plays out locally. But the thing is, people could not reach Donald Trump, and they could not reach even their senators or even their, with all respect, Congress people, Mr. Byer, but they can reach local elected officials. And so all that energy and all that both love and hate gets played out on the local elected side. So when you have a day where something happens, the emails that we get flooded with on the local side is just amazing, both on both sides. I was not in office for 3 weeks before the hate mails and death threats started coming. And I'm a chair of a county, and so I don't have security, right? I don't have a detail. And I remember when I heard somebody scream out in the hallway, and I walked out, and it was because somebody sent me a tarot card of death and said, it said, "You'll be dead by the end of the year." And I just was like, what? I just want to do land use and zoning. Like, what is that?
That's
right.
crazy.
So it's really something. I have learned something though about speaking the truth. And this is, I think, maybe the most important thing, that the most effective thing that the Republican Party has done over the past 4 years is 2 words that they have pulled and used. And those 2 words are cancel culture. They've used those 2 words to beat us over the head. And what that really means is whenever we hold anyone accountable and we say we won't allow this lie or this thing to be on the main stage anymore, then we're canceling the culture. So when I decided that a Confederate statue should not sit in front of Loudoun's in our public square in front of our courthouse, and we have the Confederate statue removed, I got all kinds of threats, people telling me about history and cancel culture and all that type of thing. And what I've learned about a lie is, it's not so much, is it a big lie? Is it a little lie? It is, how much is that lie repeated, right? How persistent is that lie? And Republicans have done a great job of saying the same thing over and over and over again, to after a while, people get tired of fighting the lie. It's like, you know what, I'm not going to fight this anymore. And they know that's where they're going to take us. And so they can continue to say, if you take down that Confederate statue, that's council culture and you're
Right.
changing history. Well, of
Good
course,
point.
that's not true. But when they say that enough, they just wear you down. And what I found in the Trump years is, you know, and why Amy was so interesting and impactful is after a while, we got outrage fatigue, right? We were tired of being outraged all the time.
Yeah.
And so, and they knew that. And so they just kept it going and kept it going. So then when we got to after the election, the big lie came, you know, the big lie that there was voter fraud and that Donald Trump really won. Everyone was so tired of all the lies that have been going on for the past 4 years that the big lie, we were just like, you know what, we can't deal with this anymore. And then the insurrection happened.
Mhm.
Finally, I will say, you know, I am I'm the chair at large of Loudoun County, and I was watching and listening really closely, and I knew that that January 6th was going to be bad, and so I put something out to the entire COG area, the Council of Government area, the entire Washington Metro area, to all of my colleagues, to all other chief elected officials that said, please encourage your constituents to not go down to DC to
Yeah, I
counter
saw that.
protest. And the hate storm from the Republican Party and from the other side was huge. And
Yes.
I thought, why are they upset with me because I'm telling people to not go counter protest? And what I realized later on was that if there had been counter protests down there, one, it would have been so much worse. And two, it was their plan all the time to blame it on Black Lives Matter. And it was their
Exactly.
plan all the time to blame it on Antifa. And if counter protesters had been down there, they could have done that. So when I put out to the entire, you know, Capital Metro region, do not go counter protest, it just ruined their whole, you know, their whole thing. And so the amount of hate I got for that was huge, but they still tried to do that lie. They tried to do that lie, but the truth is that it just didn't work. Yeah,
No.
you just couldn't do it.
Well, even being, what you brought up is really interesting. I mean, the counter, you were able to counter it by just actually speaking the truth. And we got that message at the grassroots level to stay home. And we spread that same message through our networks because we also thought, you know, this is exactly what people, they want us to do, is to go down. And this brings up the point, maybe we can kind of wrap it up with this idea, but this also makes your job definitely difficult. It's sort of like, you know, then how, when it's really important and life-saving, you know, to cut through that is really difficult. I mean, and for the future of our work, it just brings it up, just how important it is for us to counter this constantly and not to let our guard down and to continue. But it's just so dangerous, right? It's
It is,
undermining
and
democracy.
it's hard to, because if you're me, I am for the most part an incredibly optimistic person who's very trusting and stuff anyway. So if you're me, you don't want to let them change who you are. Right? You don't want them to let them change who you are at your core, at your heart, at your soul. But at the same time, you have to be aware enough to know that these things are happening. You have to stay aware. And I don't want to live outraged all the time. I can't
Right.
live like that. Right? I can't live like that. So it's this balance of how to not always be outraged, but at the same time respond how I need to respond and when I need to respond. And what I found is my balance is, you know, be outraged when I have to, and then later on that week, take a bubble bath, right?
A bubble bath, okay.
Take a bubble bath, like be really mad, and then on Sunday night take a bubble bath, right? Because you
Yeah,
have to, and sometimes
I think I may spend a lot of time in a bubble bath,
because
Phyllis.
sometimes you have to stop, you know, because you
Gotta
can't
stop.
do this all the time. You have to stop sometime. But I would say it's really interesting being on the local level, because it all just rolls downhill and it hits the
Yeah.
local elected officials. And that's just, and I love being a local elected official. I mean, I could have gone and run for a state office, but you know, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be right now.
Yeah.
I may do something else later. Who knows?
Well, you can
I might,
stay, yeah, you
but
can
I
stay,
want to be here right now.
you stay, yeah, because I know we appreciated the one thing that when you have that integrity to begin with, and you can stand outside with the crowd around you and say, we're not taking down this Confederate statue until we vote on it. The way you
Yeah.
handle yourself in that moment, I think that's really important when we talk about truth, when it comes from a source, your trusted source.
Yeah.
Source.
That
And-
whole day was,
Yeah, I don't want to bring it up, but I'm just saying you're a trusted source, and that's part of getting at the
Well, thank you.
misinformation.
Thank you.
So,
I appreciate that.
thank you, Phyllis. We're going to go over to the next trusted source very quickly because we know they have a hard stop. So thank you, Phyllis. And if you could stick around, please do for the after chat.
Wonderful.
I love to bring up Megan and Don Beyer. And Megan, welcome. I'd like to start with you because, as we say, Don is ladies first, right, Don? Or women first. That you're American journalist. You've lived your life reporting and understanding the news and deep into politics. I mean, what is your view after listening to the conversation on that level, and then at a personal level on your family, how this affected you, how you feel about your personal safety, your husband's safety, your family's safety? Just let us know what you're feeling.
Well, sort of piggybacking on what Amy and Phyllis both said, there is this really vivid understanding right now that it is truth that is part of the infrastructure of any democracy. And of course, it's the fourth estate that supplies the truth, the facts, so that you have this electorate that is informed, that can make decisions. And I think that the corrosive effect of the Sinclair broadcasting, and in Washington, that's ABC News and Fox Television, and now this OAN, and I mean, it's frightening that the infrastructure for this kind of misinformation and Russian propaganda is there to support what is a major political party that has aligned with some propaganda that is embraced by our enemies to undermine our democracy. And so what I love when we talk about the bubble bath is watching Biden pick a dandelion and give it to his wife, because it is a very heavy time. I think we all now recognize that there are people who are trying to manipulate public opinion, and the victim of this is our democracy, the thing that is supposed to hold us together.
No, I mean, that is so true. And I think this bubble bath thing is going to get some big traction today. I think we all need to remind
that, and maybe a scotch.
A scotch well in the bubble bath, no doubt. And I think that Congressman Beyer can maybe bring that to the floor, some kind of scotch and bubble bath resolution. But so
You're getting so much passed, that makes sense. So.
Well, let me tell you about something that happened to me. I'm on the board of Virginia Humanities. I used to be the, President's Committee on the Arts and Humanities. So Amy talked about this a little bit. Journalism is the first draft of history. History is written by the winners. Virginia has a big piece of American history. And at Virginia Humanities, we understand that we have to repopulate that history with the voices of women, African Americans, and the whole spectrum of ethnicities that are not represented in American history. So I wrote a piece about that after President Trump appeared at the National Archives and announced his 1776 project, which included a garden of heroes, which would be populated by Confederate statues on the mall, funded by the NEH, and all these, and lamenting this manipulation of our history and denial of fact, and it was in the Hill, and the chair of the NEH actually came out and wrote a response letter. And in that letter, we have a terrible, somebody needs to take care of the chat.
Okay, chat, shut down chat, please. I don't know what's going on in there.
Yeah,
we have security on the chat.
Yeah.
And just,
anyway,
it's okay. You know what? Let me just say something real quick. I want to tell everybody in this room that sometimes this happens to me in the chat. I've done a lot of events. Please ignore it and know that just ignore this kind of stuff. It's words. Let's continue on and we'll take care of it. So thank you.
So really when I made this, just expressing myself as a citizen, this Trump appointee came out and then stated all these lies in a letter saying Trump had given more to the arts and humanities than any president in the United States. He had zeroed out their budget. So not only is the misinformation alluding to things that have occurred in the past, but in real time, when you've seen something happen, when there are facts to show they have happened, that they brazenly repeat. So, these things have been seen before in authoritarian societies in our history. So it's dangerous, and you're so great to shine a light on it today.
Yeah, no, thank you. It is something that in the sense of our culture, even the coarsening of our culture, and you can see that people can use platforms to just be so like nasty sauce. And it's like, whatever. I mean, I just one of those things that I think I love that Biden's bringing back the civility and the idea that we can have manners. And I think we teach our kids these, at least as parents, isn't this the first thing we want to teach our kids about truth and manners and blowing our nose and making sure we sneeze on our elbows, the simple things. So let's talk about the big things though, Congressman Beyer. I mean, I think about you that day up there, what happened on January 6th, the 1776 project actually was really a lot to do with the propaganda that started going, that led people there that day. Tell me about how this affected you personally, how it affects the work that your colleagues you work with are really signed on to a paper. Was how many signed on that said the election was false?
Yes, something like 139. One small point first, Catherine, 6 years ago, with Megan's encouragement, I signed the Gender Avenger Pledge. Who said I would never be part of a panel with 3 or more people that didn't have at least one woman on it. I want to say this is the exact opposite of that. So I'm thrilled to be part of that.
Right.
And the real challenge with us on the Hill has been, how do we deal with these 130 some people that came back, at 2 a.m. to vote to decertify the Pennsylvania election after what had just happened. We're surrounded by the Matt Gaetzes, the Paul Gosars, the Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert. It's a crazy crowd, and everybody's handling it differently. It's from the point of, I'm not going to co-sponsor legislation with these people. I'm not going to vote for these people. And we're just trying to almost handle it one person at a time. But the big thing is that we recognize, you listen to the debates on the floor, it's like we're living in 2 different universes,
right?
2 entirely different sets of facts. And the only way I know to do that is to dial down as deeply, as passionately as we can on the truth that we see, which I think, by the way, is probably the correct truth. There's a wonderful idea that people believe that which is most passionately believed. So we have to be passionate about the truth that we see.
No,
Don made an interesting comment the other day. He'd been on some Zoom, and he said that it is like a religion, and in fact, politics are almost replacing religion as a belief system in America. And that's a real problem when you look at these fundamentalist movements in all religions that tend to align with this new Trumpism.
Well, I don't think it's also not, I don't think it is. You're correct. And this is something I've called out over and over and over again. I think even since the 80s and the rise of sort of the Reagan kind of era and the Young Republicans and the kind of Heritage Foundation and this alignment with religion. And I liken it to, and I hate to say it, is sort of like an American Taliban type thing where we are really saying, right, Farah, that our constitutional rights now are sort of freedom of speech means freedom to discriminate, and that we actually have freedom from religion in our lives. And that's what makes us different than other countries. We don't want to be aligned with, we don't want to be like Iran, which has a dictate of religion in it, and you could be put to death if you speak against the government.
And this is what I love, Amy Siskind and Heather Cox Richardson.
Oh, Heather Cox, that's,
they are day by day, and it's so womanly the way they're doing it, because what women tend to like go very specific, unpack it day by day, and they're so fair and they're so smart, and they're, trying to be reasonable about, this is what the Constitution meant.
right.
And Jill Lepore is pretty good too. I'm loving these women journalists and historians.
Well, no, I agree. And I think that, it's the power of all of us, working collectively together to really make sure that we are speaking the truth and we're amplifying it. And I want to ask the Congressman a question about last night with Biden. And he spoke about Reaganomics and the little, maybe the little lie about trickle down. How did you feel about that? First time that somebody said a few things from that podium about, what was your reaction?
Oh, I felt so strongly that he was right. I mean, one of the most major problems, maybe the major problem that we have in America today is the wealth inequality and the income inequality. And that has persisted over generations. And if we try to look for a deeper reason for this great divide, a lot of it's just based on economics, that we've left half the country behind.
Right.
In the meantime, the 630 billionaires, as President Biden said, had their net worth increased by $1 trillion last year. That's enough to pay for an awful lot of what he wants to do. Yeah,
no, I agree. And I think you pointed out, it's also these, I guess you can call them little lies that we say about, trickle down economics, or like pull yourself up by your bootstrap. They're kind of sayings, I don't know if they equate it to lies. It's just these kind of untruths that sort of hold up sometimes even white supremacy or power structures that keep it in place. So I would like to thank you guys for being here. And I know you're busy, and we just are so happy you're up on the Hill. We hope that you overturn the filibuster so we can get our HR 1 passed. Because let's live the truth. If we don't do this now, we may lose our democracy. The threat is still there.
And 2022, guys, we gotta win.
I know, we're in
any candidate you want across the country, but help somebody.
All right, I love the rallying cry. Thank you guys for being here, and we'll have you back in the room, the Women's Summit this summer, Dawn. So we hope to have you back, Megan. So thank you for all your work. Please put those links. Our team will put the links in the chat for your humanities articles and stuff, so we can support your work. Okay. And I'd like to bring up. Do you want to go to Carmen? Do you want to do the low Robin? What do you want to do?
I want to go to Carmen.
Carmen, oh yes, let's go. We want to make sure that we do have the pre-recorded with Lowell that is awesomely good, so we don't want to miss it. But I also want to make sure that we give a great amount of time to Carmen. Carmen, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us about what a lot of people may not know, the Crown Act, but I love that you've talked about the idea of really natural beauty, living your truth. Can you kind of tell the guests and some of us, I know Krista Jones, my friend and partner on the show, interviewed you, and I didn't get that privilege. So I would love it if you just tell us what that is all about.
So basically the Crown Act was passed so people of color, especially Black people, can be in a workspace and not feel like the issues that come along with being discriminated with wearing their hair, what is known to us culturally. Right. So that could be your braids, two-strand twist, your natural hair loose, locks, anything that has to do with our culture and the way that we like to express ourselves culturally. It helps you just to not have to deal with the discrimination, which is a big issue. So it's a great thing. Virginia is like the first Southern state to pass the law. So yeah, it's a really big deal, especially for like someone in my field, because it's an easier conversation I can have with women that feel like they can't express themselves in the corporate world.
Yes, it's your hair salon. Tell them what that's like on a daily, this is your salon and is down in Richmond. And I think we're going to put the link so people could check that out. I mean, but we know that for centuries, African-Americans in this country, the natural style was dismissed, or, white culture sort of made this hair straightening thing. And we know that this happened, and even going to the job, trying to get a job and everybody telling you have to look a certain way. So you have this dominant culture just really applying. And I think it must, tell me about what it does to you, or what it does to the self-esteem, to have people just sort of say, your natural beauty is not accepted. I mean, what if you're, what is your thoughts on that? And then I'm wondering if that's why you got involved in this or how you actually became an advocate for the Crown Act?
No, so actually I don't have any of those feelings because I'm different. And so I just used hair as my way to help the Black community. Like that was my activism, because a lot of Black people, like, they have a love-hate relationship with their hair. Like you said, there is definitely a space of wanting to conform, like you're taught as a small child. If it's picture day, you get your hair straightened. Or if it's Christmas or your birthday, you get your hair straightened. So
Right.
it's somewhat of viewed as a reward in our community, something special. You get a lot of extra compliments. Oh, you look so pretty today, because now we are looking like either one, you can see the hair and it appears to be longer than it does when it's in its natural state, which maybe appear to be a little bit more shrunken. But yeah, I think a lot of those things start early on. And of course, when it's easier to conform than it is to walk out in your Blackness and own that, right? So in this space of, if you see my hair in its natural state, you see my kinks, my curls, my ringlets, my coils, I now have to truly identify with what I truly am, and then have a whole bunch of conversations about the hair, which I think is odd, but people allow people to have conversations with them about their hair because they may be ignorant to what the hair is and can do, et cetera. So for me, because I just saw so many Black women struggling with the natural hair movement becoming a larger thing every day, I just wanted to make sure that we all were comfortable with our crowns and knew how to properly take care of them, no matter if you could get into the hair salon or not, and you felt confident enough to walk outside with your hair.
No, I love that. I love that idea. It's really letting your body speak your truth. And that, that must be, it seems to me very freeing. It's sort of like a lot of fashions, even for women, white women, Asian women, all women in general, we're kind of constrained sometimes about what we should look like. To walk outside the house during COVID, shaving, plucking hairs, doing this, and then this is the funny part. I saw men not take care of themselves. Like, okay, I'm sorry if there's any men in here that didn't, but hairy beards out to here. I had these men in my neighborhood and I'm like, how come you can look like you just came out of a cave?
Right.
That doesn't seem very fair.
Right.
And then, that just kind of cracked me up. But I think that not only sometimes women, and then you have with the Crown Act, we saw the effect of race. And I remember the feeling watching that young man who wanted to wrestle and they made him cut off his hair.
Yeah, that was disgusting.
That was really hard. That was hard. So I so appreciate your advocacy around this, really, and that you're making people feel great about themselves. So how can people support the movement, or what still needs to be done, or what's your action takeaway that you want to tell the audience?
I just would like to tell everyone that I always say, even in my salon space and what I've practiced and everything that I do, is just to lead with mindfulness. So I always tell people, allow people to start conversations. Walking up to somebody and asking them something is usually not the right way when it has something to do with that, because hair is still a way of us to express ourselves. So, for instance, even with me, I cut all my hair off, but for me, I feel my prettiest with no hair. A lot of people do not. I feel like you can see my whole face, and it's easier because I do hair all day. So then, I don't have to worry about myself. I'm already done, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Thank you. But, just allowing people to have those conversations with you if they want to. And if you see someone, just let them know, hey, I love your hair. And the other question only truly should be, well, I'm interested in possibly getting my hair done like that. Who did you go see so I can get service as well? But asking what the steps are and all of that stuff, there's Google, there's YouTube, you can get it on your own time. Yeah, because it can come off of, and this is not even just any color person, right? So this can be a Black woman to a Black woman. This can be, any person to anyone. It's just not, it's not a race thing. But like I said, everyone doesn't have the same self-love and self-care when it comes to their hair, their relationship with their hair. So you just want to make sure that you're not putting people in a space that can trigger them and or offend.
Yeah, I love it. Well, good note to end on, Carmen. And all the way from Richmond, when we come down there, we will visit your shop.
Please.
I would love it. And it's not too far from we're over here in Northern Virginia. So thank you so much. And we will obviously, hopefully see you soon.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Bye, Carmen. Thank you. And hope you could stick around if you want. I love it. And next up, we're going to have the interview with pre-recorded with Krista Jones. You won't want to miss this. Low Field of Blue Virginia. Let's go ahead.
Today we have Lowell Feld with Blue Virginia with us today. Welcome to the show, Lowell.
Thank you for having me.
So today we're talking about big and little lies. And for me, this is really a significant conversation because as we all know, we'll start off with little white lies, as we call them in our culture, or misinformation, which we are calling these recently. And then we become accustomed to them. And then those little lies become bigger lies. So I'd love for you to start off just talking about, particularly in the media, what are some both big and little lies we've seen recently?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've seen these for years, not just recently, but there are a number of very consistent, I would say, you could call them lies. I mean, there's something that the media does, particularly the political media does, that is very misleading, and I think it does a disservice to readers. For example, they do something called false equivalency, where you have one side, which is, let's just say, climate scientists, which is obviously true. And another side is climate science denial, okay? And they make that somehow like an equivalent between those two. Or Joe Biden and the Democrats want to get things done, and Republicans are trying to obstruct. Well, that's not equivalent. I mean, but you read that all the time in things like Politico, and the New York Times just had an article that was just pilloried on Twitter because it was a classic of all this. So they do this all the time. So I would say that's a lie because it's not actually true that there's an equivalence between these sides. And this relates to, it's a variant of sort of both sidesism, which is what is called, where you have, the media feels this need to always be neutral and unbiased. So they have to have, if they have one side of something, they have to have another like equivalent side of that, even if there isn't. And there usually isn't an equivalent side of that in a lot of these issues. But they also do, the media loves horse race coverage instead of substantive coverage of issues. You know, so who's up and who's down. Like, so if Joe Biden is trying to get a major infrastructure package or democracy protection package through, what's more important, that Joe Biden is up or down politically, or that this is going to affect like our entire country, hundreds of millions of people? But they do that. So I don't know if that's a lie, but it's a way of presenting information that I would say does a disservice to readers and to the American democracy and public. They also love things like, they love the narrative for some reason. I think it plays into their being neutral and not being biased towards liberals, because they were accused for so many years of being the liberal media. The Democrats in disarray narrative, they love that one, where no matter what, the Democrats, even if they're very much in array, we'll say, the media likes to portray Democrats as a mess, falling apart, like, you know, at war with themselves, civil war with the far left coming after incumbents. And this gets to, you know, the other day there was an article in the Washington Post which basically claimed that 1/5 of House Democratic incumbents in Virginia were being primaried from the left. And it was a push from the left, actually. They used the word push. So I was like, okay, that doesn't sound right to me. So I just looked at, I went to the websites of the challengers. I went to the websites of the incumbents. And I was able to find 4 out of 55. There were 55 Democrats in the House of Delegates. I found 4 that were clearly, I think you could argue clearly were primaries from the left. Okay, fine. But that's it. I didn't find even anything close to 11. So why do they feel this need to create these narratives that Democrats are, you know, being, the Democratic incumbents are being primaried from the left, when it's not even true? It's like they create the narrative first and then go back and take the facts or whatever and shoehorn them in there to fit their narrative.
So what recommendations do you have for a lot of us as activists who, when we find this, when we see this, just like you did a great job of outlining in that article you wrote, what do we do when we see this?
I mean, I think, well, first of all, I think it's really important to be an informed consumer of media. And I think a lot of people just kind of consume media passively. I think you need to be an active consumer of media. You need to know who is writing this and what their biases are, if you can possibly know that. Hopefully you can. I mean, if you follow it and you pay attention, you should be able to. And then you need to take this information, process it with that in mind. And then you need to do your own research, frankly. You need to use Google, and you can go to VPAP, which is a very good resource here in Virginia, vpap.org, I think it is, which has tons of information on all the districts, House and Senate districts in Virginia, the partisan leans of those districts, who's running, so you can also call it out. You can call it out on Facebook, Twitter. You can go in the comments section of the Washington Post or whatever and call it out and say, what are you guys doing? And or join in with other people who are calling it out.
Thank you, Lowell. I think you gave us some really good food for thought in terms of identifying false equivalencies, making sure we do our research when we read resources like VPAP, all very, very important. So thank you so much for joining us.
Woo! Hello, okay, we're back. So Louisa, we're ready to go for our grassroots news. Thank you for being patient. What a great show today.
It was a great show.
Great.
Yeah.
So we also know what it's
everyone.
about. It's about elections. Let's go.
It is about elections. So the most important thing right now for everyone is you can vote. It is early voting time. I put in the chat information that is new. We have a new website that people can go to find out the early voting information for their own local place, because as we all know, it's different everywhere across Virginia when it's open. Is it open during the week? Is it open on the weekends? So make sure to check it out. It's the iwillvote.com website, and you can choose your location, and it will tell you when you can go vote in person. Obviously, there are other options for voting this year as well. You can request a ballot and vote by mail. However, as we like to encourage people, if you can just go down, just do it in person so we know it's there. We don't have to worry about it arriving in the mail on time. So lots of opportunities. We've got 6 weeks to vote, everyone. So please encourage your friends, people you know, let's all vote early. And then the other thing I wanted to let you know is that we have a coalition meeting that's coming up on Sunday. We have a really great lineup of people who are going to be joining us. First, I'm going to be giving some updates on our 2021 races. We had our first meeting with the Democratic Party and the partners table a couple of weeks ago. We have some interesting polling data and focus group information to share. So if you can join the coalition meeting, that'll be the first thing on the agenda. Then we're going to talk about other things that we're considering as a coalition. What does it mean to support new Democrats running for office? As we know, we've got lots of good Democrats in positions in the House and Senate, and then we also have some who have been there for a while and may not align completely with our priorities. And we're going to be having a discussion about what's it going to take to potentially find some people who are more progressive, who are ready to really push the boundary, like we heard from Don Beyer, like we've heard from other people today. So we're going to have that conversation as well. And then, of course, we will wrap up with some of our candidates speaking and letting us know what their vision is for Virginia. So we will have Delegate Mark Levine and Delegate Sam Rasool both coming and talking about their run for Lieutenant Governor. So hope to see you. The links are in the chat. I'll put them in one more time, but please vote and please come to the coalition meeting.
Yes, I agree. And I want to ask you something about that. In the sense of what we need to talk about. I got a call from somebody who said that we have some races. This is interesting, where Republicans are running as Democrats and they're primarying. And I'm interested that we discuss this as a coalition, calling out these people. I think there's a Virginia Beach, somebody down there is running.
So I think, this is something we absolutely need to discuss. As we know, also we've got Paul Seiker, who used to be a Republican, who's running in Loudoun County. So I think it's important to note that some people are, changing positions. things happened over the past 4 years, and I think
Yes.
people are reconsidering their alignments with different parties. But I think it's really important to look at what is their platform, what do they say they care about, because that's what we can hold them accountable to. So I think the Virginia Beach race is a very complicated one. There are a lot of Democrats who are backing the woman who is or used to be a Republican. The way the Virginia Beach Democratic Party works is it's very fluid. There's not a lot of clarity between Republicans and Democrats in that space. And so I think it's really important for us to like speak with the person running, find out from her what her position is, because I've heard, based on her voting record in the school board, which is where she serves right now, it's actually been pretty good. Right. So I think this is where we have a challenge between
I think this is
labels and what's actually what we're really dealing with. So
maybe that's the bigger conversation then. We see this kind of transformation in some of these areas, and the Republican Party is just changing so much. So I'll go off on a tangent, but I think this is a really good conversation, whether it's shenanigans or whether it's really that the Republican Party is falling apart, and we're getting some very more moderate Republicans coming into our party. And this is a good power lunch show. So thank you, Louisa. It's so great to see you.
Good to
I'll see you Sunday. And let's wrap this show up because we have an after chat. Remember, become a patron of the show. Why not? Who doesn't want to be a patron of our show? Look at my awesome leopard against this orange. This is awesome. Support it. Okay. And then follow us on Twitter and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And the teaser for next week. Well, Robin, I always like to hand this up. Already hands up. I love it. Oh, this is for our candidates running. I love it. Good to see the candidates in the room. Teaser for next week. Robin, you're always good at the teaser because by the end of the show, I forget.
Well, I think you need to mention about Mother's Day.
Oh, Mother's Day. Yes.
I'll let you go from there.
The Mothers of All Mother's Day Friday show. And that is that, this year, I always say Mother's Day is if you're a mother in the room, you know what Mother's Day is. It's a lot of smiling, and thank you for that burnt waffle. It was excellent. And then it's also just the way that we need to honor and celebrate women. But this year, Friday, we're going to bring a little bit of an edge to it by saying, send more than a card, send more than flowers. Let's deliver economic justice to women through things like family paid leave, childcare, pay equity, all these things. If we really want to say what we saw in COVID, what happened to moms, let's really give them something more for Mother's Day, really great policies, really making sure they get back on their feet after this pandemic. And with that, I hope you stay for the after chat, and let's get this party started for the after chat.